Upper Echelon is brought to you by Deloitte. For innovative thinking and thorough strategic planning, turn to Deloitte. Mark Wylie is the chairman of Wilson Bailey, a position he's held for the last 9 years in a company that he joined virtually from university. In fact, Mark, you have a policy you said on the MoneyWeb wiki: get a degree, join the right company, and stay with it. Now, you've followed that through, but who gave you that advice?
Alec, I think it was just the way I was brought up, When I left school, I wasn't quite sure what to do. My dad said, look, you did well at maths, go and do engineering. And I think I was just really, I suppose, not all that sure of myself. And, I always thought that I've really got to be lucky to get a job. And if I do get a job, I've really got to just work for that company as hard as I can. And I think that sort of stayed with me all the time. I've always thought I've got to earn a lot more for the company than the company pays me. So, I've always believed that, it's got to be a hell of a good reason to leave a company. I suppose I was lucky with Wilson Bailey Homes, Ofcon as it grew. But, and I've tried to encourage that with everyone else. I think of our 100 divisional directors, we're pretty big now, the average service with the company is over 20 years. And I think that's quite unique. And it's difficult to maintain because, younger people don't seem to have the staying power that us older guys have. But it certainly, gives you so much continuity of management. It makes the business so much easier to run when you've been with guys that length of time and you all know each other so well.
You don't really bring people in from outside anymore. But in the early days, you joined Wilson, Wilson Homes back then when it had only been around for 5 years. Did you import managers then?
No, we were very small. I was in Cape Town, and the company in Cape Town, Robert Katz Construction, I was with, went bankrupt, which was a great experience for me. And I was also doing a BCom just part-time at the time. And I think that really was a good grounding for me on the financial side because obviously all my training was in engineering. And so it was small and we stayed small. We were very conservative. We always paid cash for everything. And I think having been through that bankruptcy really made me understand just how important it was to be totally solvent all the time. So that really did restrict our growth. And then we met up with Peter Bailey of Peter Bailey Construction, they were guys out of Basil Reid. They were much more aggressive. And that sort of balance, I think, really did help us to grow, and sort of get to where we are now.
So it was that merger that gave you the kick. But thereafter, you've had this policy of, well, succession is very important to you. Within the group, you would rather promote than bring in outsiders.
Yeah, we have a few exceptions for exceptional circumstances. Our financial director, Angus McKenzie, from those Basil Reid days in the 70s, was a big loss to us, and he had to retire. He went all the way through to 70. And although we try and start, getting guys to start retiring from 60 to 65, but he was an exceptional person, and to replace him was really difficult. And there was a person in the industry I knew, I'd known him for a long time, and I persuaded him to join us. And it's been fantastic, and he's actually far more modern and far more up to date with all the thinking in terms of banking and concessions and things like that. So we were very lucky to get him. But other than that, it really has been just promoting from within. Most of the guys, our top managers, were university students with us.
It's more than a year now since you gave over the reins to Loki Nell as the chief executive. You've remained very involved as the chairman of the company. And I suppose looking back on a lifetime with one business, you probably helped to shape the culture around yourself as much as you've been shaped by the company.
I think so. I think there's a time for everyone. In the 70s and early 80s, it was John Wilson's time. He was my mentor, and he was a big figure for me, and I think in the industry. And he got the company to a point, and then Brian Holmes took over when he retired, and it was a time for him. And then in the early 90s, Paul Thiessen and myself really got involved in managing the company. And then it was really my time, I suppose, from about 2000 until now. But I really understand it's not my time anymore, and it really is time for me to go because I'll just be in the way. And the talent that's coming through is so much more up to date, whether it's with clients or with modern thinking or with the staff below them. There really does come a time to go, and I really feel that time is now.
But does that culture remain, the culture of your open door policy, the transparency that you bring throughout the organization and externally as well, the fact that you believe managers should be hands-on, knowing the details, not just knowing the big picture?
Absolutely. That whole combination, which I've always marveled at in construction, is the successful contractors are very strong guys, very intelligent guys, but very humble. And to get that humility and strength combination is really difficult, because really we have to be so appreciative of the work we get, from major clients who are building, whether it's a whatever structure it is. It's really important to them, and we've got to understand just how important that structure is to them, and understand our place in the whole food chain. So that humility and is so important. I think that's really part of the culture. So I think it just gets ingrained in the guys, and especially when it's the only job they've had, most of them. And there's just no arrogance at all, and I think that's really what does maybe give WBHO a bit of an edge.
You say that the person you'd most like to meet in a business field is Warren Buffett. Have you studied him?
I've just read about him, and I've watched his talks and tapes and things, and he just seems a really down-to-earth guy. We
still want to get you to come with us to.
I'd love to do that one.
To the Omaha AGM. But do you know much about Peter Kivitt Construction? That's a company that Buffett talks a lot about, an Omaha firm.
Yes, funny. I've seen signs of them in Australia, and we haven't seen them here, but. It's definitely a big international company, but I don't know much about them. But we have come across them in the resource sector in Perth.
It's interesting that the two issues of Buffett that I'd love to pick up with you on. The first one, he says, is the most important decision you'll make in your life is the person that you married, and you seem to crack that one with Wendy.
Yes, it's funny. There's a lot of my civil engineering colleagues have married teachers, and it's I think it makes a good combination. But I was very, very fortunate, and it's great now to start having a bit of time with her, because I think in construction, us contractors, we do tend to neglect our wives and families because the work is just so demanding, and you just have to be there. And so I'm really looking forward to the bit of extra time we're getting now, and my challenge is now to really do, get Australia sorted out and hand it over the next 2 or 3 years, because that's becoming quite a big business now.
The other thing that, from the Buffett side, is he refers to Peter Kivitt's remuneration policies as being exemplary. How do you do your executive remuneration, or how do you tackle that tricky challenge at Wilson Bailey?
That's very much part of the whole succession planning. There's two events every year. The one is when you give increases, and the other is when you give bonuses. We always try and have our policy is always to try and have a lower salary than is generally paid in the industry. We feel that makes us competitive to win bids, etc. But then hopefully be able to pay a bigger bonus at the end of the year. And that whole process of every time those two events occur, you looking at exactly where the particular person is in the industry, how his career is moving on, has he moved up a notch, and so we've never given letters saying you are now promoted from a senior site agent to a contracts manager. It just happens naturally, but every 6 months, one's having a thorough discussion about the person through the increase or bonus system. So it's a system that works well for us. We just, we've been doing it for the last 20, 30 years, and it works very quickly, very effectively, very fair. We cover everybody thoroughly, and I think it it leads to a happy organisation.
You've had a number of major projects in the last few years: the Greenpoint Stadium, the Durban Stadium, OR Tambo, King Shaka, Moses Mabhida. It kind of goes on, all culminating in the World Cup of 2010. A lot of people are now looking back at those projects and saying, hang on a minute, could the country really afford them? There were a number of cost overruns. Was there another way? Was there a way of doing it better?
I think that there could have been, but those stadiums are really world class. I think Durban and Joburg and Cape Town especially, and I think it's really helped raise the profile of South Africa to the rest of the world, because We've built those, not just the fact that we built those stadiums on time and to the best quality, but the fact that South Africa is able to afford them. And I think the total cost of those 3 stadiums was less than the cost of Wembley, and Wembley, as you know, was 2 years late, and so I think a big, strong message was sent out there. I mean, obviously, money really should be as much as possible diverted towards poverty alleviation, infrastructure services in the towns, especially in the rural areas. And I think that's going to be the push from now on. And that's, I suppose, why we're not going for the Olympics. But I think as a once-off, I think South Africa needed to just show what a great country we are, because, up to that point, I don't think anybody thought we could do anything.
Mark, what about the Competition Commission investigation?
Look, that's a cloud that's come over, especially at the end of my career, which I'm not enjoying. It's the competition law is very broad. I don't think we certainly 5 years ago weren't paying enough attention to it, and we certainly understand it now exactly. And it's always sort of an elephant in the room. We can't discuss it. It's the process is going on. The investigation will most probably take until the first quarter of next year. But it is a concern, but it's something we've got to work through and certainly learn from. And it is very much a thing of the past, but it's there, and we've got to look. We've got to deal with it as best we can.
Has it shaken you up?
Yeah, I think it has. Yeah, it's been tough, and I'm not really looking forward to the next 6 months, but we'll get through it. And I think we've already understand exactly the way to all those behaviours that we had, which really weren't good. It's absolutely clear to everybody that this won't occur again. And in fact, it hasn't occurred for many years now, but that it was there in the past, and we've got to deal with it.
On a broader scale, your shareholders are delighted today that you didn't fall into the trap of buying a construction materials company. Talking to the guys at Group 5, they're pulling their hairs out. They've written off R1 billion on a deal they did. Avenge did something as well. Murray and Roberts did it as well. But perhaps, on the other hand, you have been reluctant to buy companies. Often you get spoken about as a potential bidder. CK was an example. Esau Frankie was another one. This reluctance to get involved in that way, where does it come from?
I think it's just our conservative nature. I think we're very careful. We have bought a few. We like to buy companies when they're small in special niche areas that we can help them grow. And we've made quite a few. We've just bought a little sliding company called Renix, which has been around a long time, and that really complements our civil business. In situ pipelines, another specialist company, which has really been fantastic. So we just try and do it very conservatively. We've also been a bit lucky. We have got exposure to that materials business, which has hurt our income statement this year. Not too badly, but we've got to watch it very carefully, and that's Capital Africa Services, and it's been very tough. But we feel our management is on top of it, and. I look over one's career. You look back, and I always think one of the important things is in construction, but I'm sure in any business, is to have a really good memory, because you've got to remember all those mistakes you made and the good things you did, so that you can, hopefully do better in the future.
You haven't completely switched off, as you mentioned earlier. You're looking after Australia now for the group. Why do you think it is that Wilson Bailey has done well in Australia, whereas so many South African companies have taken a hiding there?
I think we went in there, when we made the first purchase in 2000, we just bought 40% of the company, and we said, guys, we don't want to take over your company. We just want to bring you all the things we've learnt. I think at that stage, WBHO had a good track record, and we had good systems. And these guys were hungry for those systems. And I think we didn't try and dominate. We brought a few key guys in. And then we helped them expand. They're fairly, they like to stay in boxes in Australia. For instance, in South Africa, even though we're civil engineers, we do building, we do pipelines, we do all sorts of things. So we've helped them diversify, not only geographically, but in the different aspects of the construction business. So the civil business.
A small step first probably looks to be the right approach.
Yeah, and just step by step and just doing it very conservatively.
So what's ahead for you?
I must, my main concern is now we're doing a bit of restructuring in Australia, where the business must probably get up to about 7 billion rand this year. And there's lots of opportunities there, and it's to structure the business to make sure we make the most of those opportunities. And then to actually start handing that over to the new management coming through. So that's seamless, because obviously the Australian management must be happy with that. They're kind of used to me now. And but I feel over the next it'll take me 2 or 3 years to achieve that. And that's so I work pretty hard on Australia. And then also, it's great to, as I said, to have a bit of time for one's personal, to be able to do things for one's personal life.
Lots of golf, lots of surfing in Mike Wylie's future. He's the chairman of WBHO. Upper Echelon was brought to you by Deloitte. For innovative thinking and thorough strategic planning, turn to Deloitte.
Does your business plan still add up? Business planning during periods of financial and economic turmoil is a challenging task. With a truly global perspective and a view across all sectors, Deloitte can provide understanding and insight you can rely on. We'll help you review your plans and develop strategies to keep pace with or even anticipate market changes. So make this move your best move. Call Deloitte today or visit www.deloitte.co.za.